the world doesn't reward the emotional. It rewards the disciplined. You can't lead your life by how you feel. You lead it by what you decide. Feelings are wind. They shift, they scream, they fade. But focus cuts through storms. This is your guide to emotional control, to mastering your reactions, sharpening your state, and moving through chaos with calm precision. In this audiobook, you'll learn how to stop being ruled by impulses and start commanding your focus like a warrior commands his blade.
You know why most people never reach mastery? Because they keep negotiating with their feelings. Every day, every hour, every minute, they let their emotions sit at the table of decision. I don't feel like it. I'm tired. I'll start tomorrow. That inner voice has destroyed more dreams than failure ever will. And here's the truth. No one cares how you feel. The world moves on, whether you act or not. You have a choice. Either you let your emotions command your actions, or you become the commander of your emotions. That's the key. The warrior's path begins when you stop asking your feelings for permission. You don't need their approval to rise. You don't need motivation to move. Motivation is a visitor. It shows up when it wants, leaves when it pleases. Discipline is a resident. It stays even when you're tired, cold, or uninspired. Every time you hesitate because you don't feel like it, you surrender your power. You hand control to weakness. And weakness never negotiates in your favor. High performers don't wait for the right feeling. They act in spite of the wrong one. That's what separates the consistent from the chaotic. It's not about feeling ready. It's about being relentless. It's not about comfort. It's about command. Think about the Navy SEALs. Do you think they feel like jumping into freezing water before sunrise? Do you think they feel like running miles on zero sleep? No, but they move anyway. They act even when it burns, because they understand one truth. If you negotiate with your feelings, you lose your mission. You can't serve two masters, emotion and execution. You either serve your mission or you serve your moods. The battlefield doesn't care about your feelings. The weights in the gym don't care about your feelings. The clock ticking past midnight doesn't care about your feelings. Only you decide who's in control. Every day you wake up, there's a negotiation waiting. Your mind says, let's rest a little longer. Your body says, we've done enough. Your emotions whisper, it's okay to skip today. And every time you agree, you weaken the muscle of discipline. Every time you delay, you teach your brain that feelings decide your fate. But the warriors of focus, the people who build, lead, and win, they train themselves differently. They don't ask, do I feel like it? They ask, is it required? That's the mindset shift. That's emotional control in motion. You move even when it hurts. You act even when it burns, because each act of discipline is a strike against weakness. Discipline is not about punishment, it's about precision. It's a signal to your mind that you are in command. It's you saying, I decide when to move, not my emotions. Think about it. Your emotions fluctuate like weather. They rise, fall, storm, and clear. But your mission? That stays constant. You don't change the goal because of a storm, you adjust your grip. That's what mastery looks like. Here's the trap. Society tells you to listen to your feelings. They say, if it doesn't feel right, don't do it. But if every warrior lived by that rule, no one would build, lead, or finish anything. Your feelings aren't a compass. They're a test. They test your consistency, your commitment, your clarity. If you obey them, they'll control you. If you master them, they'll strengthen you. Remember, it's not about feeling inspired. It's about staying intentional. You don't need a spark. You need a system. The system is simple. Wake up, execute, repeat. No emotion, no hesitation, no negotiation. Think of every moment you said, "I'll start when I feel ready." How many times did ready ever come? How many opportunities died waiting for the perfect moment? You have to stop waiting. You have to stop negotiating. Because readiness is a lie sold by comfort. Action creates readiness. Movement creates motivation. You move first, the feelings follow later. That's the formula for every high performer on this planet. When you wake up tomorrow and your mind says, "Not today," you answer back, "Yes, today." When your body says, "I'm tired," you whisper, "I move anyway." When your emotions scream, "I can't," you roar back, "I will." That's the fight for control. That's emotional discipline in its rawest form. You're building a mind that obeys command. Not emotion, not mood, not impulse. Command. And every act of obedience to discipline is another nail in the coffin of weakness. You want to be unstoppable? Then stop negotiating with what's temporary. Feelings are weather. Focus is climate. You can't let a single storm change your entire season. That's what the weak do. That's what the emotional do. But you choose differently. You build consistency. You move with intention. You live by standards, not moods. And every day that you push through, every task you complete, every moment you act without feeling like it, you're not just completing a task. You're building an identity. The identity of someone unshakable. You have to train your emotions the same way a soldier trains his body. With repetition, with resistance, with reality. You don't get emotional control by talking about it. You get it by living it. You feel the fatigue and move anyway. You feel the doubt and decide anyway. You feel the fear and act anyway. That's how warriors are made. That's how discipline becomes instinct. So from this point forward, make this rule permanent. You do not negotiate with feelings. You execute the mission, no matter what your emotions say. Because when you stop letting feelings lead, you start letting focus rule. And when focus rules, your life changes. You stop chasing comfort and start creating results. You stop reacting and start commanding. You stop surviving and start leading. That's emotional control. That's what this entire book is about. You move even when it hurts. You act even when it burns because you know this truth. You're not here to feel ready. You're here to stay ready. You've learned how to master your hesitation. You've learned how to move through resistance. Now it's time to take that control even deeper. You stopped negotiating with your feelings. Now, let's expose the real enemy that feeds those feelings. Reactivity.
The greatest enemy of clarity isn't confusion, it's reactivity. Emotional reactivity blinds focus. It destroys control. It makes strong people act weak, and wise people act foolish. Every outburst, every snap decision, every emotional reaction, it's a leak in your power. You can't command what you can't control. You can't lead if you can't pause. And you can't grow if you keep reacting to everything that moves. Pause is power. Reaction is weakness. That's the key. When something triggers you, an insult, a delay, a disappointment, your mind wants to fire back instantly. That's your emotional brain, your primal wiring demanding dominance. It's fast, loud, impulsive. It doesn't want reflection. It wants reaction. But high performers, warriors, leaders, they live by a different code. They master the pause. They breathe before they speak.
They think before they strike. Because they know one truth: the first reaction is rarely the right one. You have a choice. You can react like everyone else or respond like someone in control. That's the difference between chaos and command. Let's get practical. You're in a meeting. Someone criticizes your work. Instantly, your body tenses. You want to defend, to explain, to fight. That's reactivity. It's emotional autopilot. But the warrior pauses. He inhales. He observes. He doesn't take the bait. He knows that reaction is weakness disguised as strength. Because true strength isn't about volume. It's about velocity. It's about slowing down your mind while the world speeds up. It's about owning the moment before it owns you. Pause is power. Reaction is weakness. Think of a leader in crisis. A storm hits, a deal collapses, a plan fails. The team panics, eyes turn to him. If he panics, everyone breaks. If he stays calm, everyone follows. That's not luck. That's training. That's emotional control in its purest form. He doesn't suppress emotion. He channels it. He doesn't explode. He calculates. He doesn't react. He responds. Because reaction is impulsive. Response is intentional. You have to train that skill every day. Every time you face pressure, it's a chance to practice control. Here's how emotional reactivity traps you. You see a trigger, you feel emotion, you act. There's no gap, no pause, no awareness. And in that gapless moment, you lose clarity, you lose choice, you lose power. That's how most people live, reacting to every emotion, every comment, every inconvenience. They're puppets on the strings of their feelings. Someone pulls, they move. You can't live like that and expect mastery. You can't lead your life if your emotions lead you. The goal is to create the gap. That split second of stillness between stimulus and response, that's where your power lives. When you can hold that space, you control everything. Pause is power. Reaction is weakness. Here's the behavioral discipline you must build: the 3-second rule. When you feel an emotional spike, anger, fear, pride, frustration, don't act for 3 seconds. Breathe. Count. Observe. It sounds simple, but it's brutal at first. Because your emotions want to win. They want to hijack the wheel. But every time you pause, you weaken their grip. Every time you pause, you strengthen your command. That's training. That's mental warfare. And just like physical training, it requires repetition. You don't become calm once. You become calm daily. The world rewards reaction with attention. The internet is built on outrage. Social media thrives on emotional impulsivity. Someone posts, someone reacts, chaos erupts, and no one grows. Don't play that game. You don't need to comment on every post. You don't need to answer every insult. You don't need to engage every conflict. It's not about silence. It's about strategy. It's not about weakness. It's about wisdom. You don't need their permission to stay composed. You don't need to prove your power through noise. You prove it through presence. That's the mark of control. being the calmest mind in a loud world. Understand this. Emotions aren't your enemies. They're signals, not commands. You feel anger because something matters. You feel fear because there's risk. You feel frustration because you care. But emotions were designed to inform you, not to rule you. It's your job to interpret the signal, not obey the impulse. You can feel anger without acting angry. You can feel fear without acting fearful. You can feel sadness without becoming paralyzed. That's emotional maturity. That's mental discipline. It's not about denial. It's about direction. You decide where your emotions go. There's a story about a samurai who was insulted by a drunk man in the street. The drunk spat at him, mocked him, and shouted. The samurai didn't move. He simply stood there, calm, silent, unshaken. His student asked, "Master, why didn't you punish him?" The samurai replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you don't accept it, who owns the gift?" That's control. That's mastery. That's what you're building here. You don't accept every emotional gift that's thrown at you. You let others drown in their own noise while you stay centered in silence. Because silence isn't surrender, it's strategy. Pause is power. Reaction is weakness. When you master your pause, you master your perception. When you master your perception, you master your peace. You can walk into chaos and remain composed. You can face conflict and stay focused. You can be surrounded by noise and still hear your own thoughts clearly. That's the warrior's advantage. That's emotional control in action. It's not about suppressing emotion, it's about commanding it. You can't stop the waves, but you can learn to stand still in them. That's the practice. That's the path. From now on, when pressure hits, repeat this to yourself. Pause is power. Reaction is weakness. Let that phrase become your internal armor. When anger rises, pause. When fear hits, pause. When doubt whispers, pause. You don't have to act fast. You have to act right. Every pause strengthens focus. Every controlled response builds confidence. Every calm moment rewires your identity toward mastery. You are training yourself to be unshakable. So stop reacting to everything. Stop letting emotions hijack your mission. Stop giving away your energy to things beneath your control. You have a choice. You always have a choice. And the moment you realize that, the moment you choose to pause instead of react, you step into command. You stop being a prisoner of emotion and become a commander of focus. Pause is power. Reaction is weakness. That's how warriors move. That's how leaders decide. That's how you win. You've learned to pause. You've learned to breathe. You've learned to take your power back from reaction. Now it's time to take that calm and forge it into something sharper. Focus. Because emotional control isn't just about silence.
Focus isn't something you feel. Focus isn't something you find. Focus is something you forge. You create it. You sharpen it. You protect it. And if you don't, the world will break it for you. Most people treat focus like a mood. I'm not in the zone today. I don't feel focused right now.
I'll start when my mind clears. That mindset is the fastest way to stay average. Focus isn't calm, it's control. That's the key. The warrior understands this. The warrior doesn't wait for clarity, he creates it. He doesn't hope for concentration, he commands it. You have a choice. You can let distractions dictate your direction, or you can build focus strong enough to cut through anything. Focus is a weapon. And like any weapon, it must be handled with discipline, precision, and intention. Look at the samurai. Before battle, they trained in deep silence. No noise, no chaos, no distraction. Why? Because they understood that the real fight happens before the sword is ever drawn. Their enemy wasn't the opponent in front of them. It was the noise inside their minds. So they practiced stillness. They practiced breath. They practiced locking their entire being onto a single point. Not 10 things, not 5 things, 1. That's focus as a weapon. That's discipline, not mood. Elite athletes do the same. Before stepping into the arena, they visualize one target, one outcome, one objective. They narrow their world down to the smallest possible point, because that's how you create power. Power doesn't come from spreading your attention thin. Power comes from compressing your intention tight. Laser, not floodlight. Precision, not noise. Focus isn't calm, it's control. But here's the truth most people avoid. You cannot build focus without eliminating distractions. You cannot achieve clarity while bathing in noise. You cannot create a sharp mind while feeding it chaos. It's not about intelligence. It's not about talent. It's about discipline. It's not about feeling ready. It's about removing what weakens you. You don't need their permission to silence the world. You must learn to say no more than you say yes. You must protect your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. Your attention shapes your identity. Your identity shapes your actions. Your actions shape your future. Distraction steals the future. Focus builds it. You have a choice. Here's a hard truth. The biggest enemy of focus isn't your environment. It's your habits. Scrolling, switching, checking, jumping. These habits fracture your mind into 1,000 pieces, and a fractured mind cannot create a powerful life. You don't need more motivation. You need fewer leaks. Focus isn't about doing more. It's about removing more. It's not about effort. It's about intention. It's not about mood. It's about mastery. That's the key. You must treat your focus like a warrior treats his blade. Sharpen it daily. Protect it fiercely. Use it with purpose. Here's how. 1. Give your mind one target. Not 5 tasks, not 10 goals. One mission at a time. A warrior doesn't swing at everything. He strikes where it matters. 2. Control your environment. If your space is chaotic, your mind becomes chaotic. Clear your desk. Silence your phone. Clean your battlefield before you fight on it. 3. Set non-negotiable work blocks. Focus cannot survive in optional conditions. Schedule it, protect it, respect it. Because when something becomes non-negotiable, it becomes powerful. Focus isn't calm, it's control. But here's the truth most people avoid. Focus requires sacrifice. You will have to cut people off. You will have to disconnect. You will have to stop explaining yourself, because the world will always try to pull you into its distraction. People who lack focus want company. People who drift want others to drift with them. But you don't need their permission to rise. You don't need approval to concentrate. It's not about being antisocial. It's about being intentional. It's not about being rude. It's about being aligned. It's not about withdrawing. It's about weaponizing your attention. Focus is a weapon. A precise one, a powerful one, a rare one. Think of how warriors train. They strike the same target thousands of times, not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because repetition makes the mind sharper than the blade. You must train the same way. Read deeply, work deeply, think deeply. No switching, no bouncing, no mental scattering. Every time you stay with one task longer than your emotions want you to, you strengthen the muscle of focus. Every time you resist distraction, you sharpen the weapon. You have a choice every second of every day between power and noise. And remember this, focus isn't calm, it's control. Control of your impulses, control of your attention, control of your direction. When you master that, nothing can stop you. Not stress, not chaos, not fear. Because a focused mind cuts through everything. A focused mind is dangerous. A focused mind is unstoppable. A focused mind is free. From this moment forward, stop treating focus like a mood. Stop waiting to feel ready. Stop searching for inspiration. Stop letting noise dictate your destiny. You have a choice. Choose the weapon. Choose focus. Choose command. Because when you control your focus, you control your life. That's the key. That's the discipline. That's the warrior's path. You've learned to sharpen your attention. You've learned to protect your focus. Now it's time to take the next step. Not just using focus, but directing it. Because clarity is useless without direction. You built your blade. Now you must aim it. You want control. You want certainty. You want guarantees. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. You don't control outcomes. You control effort. You control discipline. You control yourself. Everything else? Noise, illusion, distraction. And if you let that distraction own you, you'll never master emotional control. That's the key. The greatest warriors, the greatest thinkers, the greatest leaders, they all understood one thing. Outcome is not yours. Effort is. You have a choice. You can live as a slave to results, or you can live as a master of your own mind. Detach, deliver, and dominate. Most people live trapped in emotional chaos because their happiness is tied to something they don't control. They chase validation. They chase approval. They chase a specific result. And when the world doesn't give it to them, they collapse. Their energy collapses. Their confidence collapses. Their identity collapses. Why? Because they tied their worth to an outcome that was never theirs to control in the first place. But you are here to break that pattern. You are here to detach, deliver, and dominate. Think about the Stoics. Think about Marcus Aurelius, writing in the dead of night while Rome demanded everything from him. He didn't seek guaranteed outcomes. He focused on right action. That's it. Action, not applause. Input, not reward. Discipline, not desire. Detachment isn't passivity, it's precision. It's the trimming of mental fat.
It's the warrior's discipline to say, I will give my best, I will execute with clarity, and I refuse to be owned by results I cannot control. Detach, deliver, and dominate. Repeat. Here's the problem. You want the world to behave. You want people to act exactly how you expect. You want the timing to be perfect. You want the reward to match the work right away. You want fairness. But life doesn't care about your expectations. And that's the key. You keep expecting what life never promised you. Detach from the promise. Attach to the process. Because emotional reactivity, the very enemy we confronted earlier, feeds on expectations. When reality doesn't match your fantasy, you explode. You panic. You react. You lose your center. But when you detach from the outcome, the world can't manipulate you. People can't manipulate you. Failure can't manipulate you. You become immovable. Let me tell you something warriors understand better than anyone. You earn peace the moment you let go of the results you were never meant to control. Look at every elite performer: samurai, monks, war generals, high-level athletes. They all share one common thread: focus on the strike, not the scoreboard. A samurai doesn't swing his blade thinking, will people praise me after this? No. He trains, he disciplines, he slows his breath, he locks his mind, and then he executes. Outcome is secondary, process is primary, discipline is everything. It's not about the reward, it's about the ritual. That's the key. You don't need their permission, you don't need their validation, you don't need the world to clap for you. Detach, deliver, and dominate. Now let's get practical. Here's what you must do starting today. 1. Remove emotional ownership from results. When something doesn't go your way, stop interpreting it as a personal attack. It's not about failure, it's about discipline. Say it out loud. I own the effort, not the outcome. 2. Redefine success. Success isn't the trophy. Success is the consistency. Success is the discipline. Success is showing up when your mood tells you not to. You have a choice every day. Choose consistency. 3. Use the warrior question. Before every task, every conversation, every challenge, ask, what part of this is under my control? Then direct your energy only there. Cut the rest. 4. Stop bargaining with reality. You waste energy wishing things were different. Warriors don't bargain. They adapt. They adjust. They execute. Detach from how you wish things would go. Deliver with what you have. 5. Build emotional discipline through repetition. The world will test you. People will disappoint you. Outcomes will shift. Your job? Respond the same way every time. Detach, deliver, and dominate. Now hear this clearly. Detachment is not indifference. Detachment is mastery. Indifference says, I don't care. Detachment says, I care enough to stay disciplined no matter what. And that's the key. Because when you detach, something powerful happens. Your mind quiets. Your fear shrinks. Your judgment sharpens. Your clarity expands. You stop reacting like a victim and start acting like a commander. You reclaim your power. Let me give you an image to hold on to. Picture a warrior standing on a battlefield. Arrows fly, dust rises, noise explodes around him. But he isn't focused on the chaos. He isn't focused on the predictions. He isn't focused on what may or may not happen. He is focused on the next strike, the next movement, the next breath. That is detachment. That is power. That is emotional control. And that's the version of you this chapter is building. You have a choice. Be controlled by outcomes or be controlled by discipline. Only one of these paths makes you a warrior. Only one of these paths gives you emotional control. Only one of these paths frees you. Detach, deliver, and dominate. Let that echo in your mind every single day. Because you can live your whole life waiting for the world to behave, or you can finally master the one battlefield that always belonged to you, your mind. And when you master detachment, you become unstoppable.
Look around you. Everywhere you turn, people are chasing the next hit, the next like, the next notification, the next burst of pleasure that feels good for 5 seconds and destroys their discipline for 5 days. This is the modern battlefield. Not swords, not guns, not shields, but dopamine. The world is addicted to feeling good, not becoming good. And that's the key. Because you can't build emotional control when you're a prisoner to your impulses. Most people chase feelings. Warriors chase consistency. That's the difference. That's the separation. That's the edge. And you have a choice. You can be like everyone else, scrolling, reacting, craving. Or you can rise above the noise and take command. Dopamine fades. Discipline remains. Here's the truth no one wants to admit. Your phone is training you more than your mind is. Your impulses are stronger than your intentions. Your habits are louder than your goals. You want to be mentally strong, but you're feeding mental weakness every time you surrender to instant gratification. The pleasure hits. The tension fades. The brain relaxes. And in that moment, discipline dies. Dopamine is not the enemy. Lack of discipline is. It's not about craving. It's about control. It's not about temptation. It's about training. It's not about distraction. It's about discipline. That's the key. Think about how ancient warriors trained. They didn't get participation trophies. They didn't scroll through endless rewards to feel important. They sharpened their minds by denying themselves comfort. That was their edge. A samurai didn't wake up and ask, "What will make me feel good today?" He asked, "What will make me effective today?" An elite soldier doesn't train to feel pleasure. He trains to feel prepared. A warrior doesn't chase dopamine. A warrior builds discipline. Because dopamine fades. Discipline remains. Let's break this down clearly. Dopamine is the chemical of reward. Discipline is the system of mastery. One pushes you forward temporarily. The other sustains you permanently. Dopamine spikes are unreliable. They come, they go. They rise, they crash. But discipline is stable. Discipline is steady. Discipline is the thing you can rely on when your mood collapses. Most people live life chasing spikes. Warriors build systems. You have a choice. If you want emotional control, you must know this. Every time you choose the quick reward, you weaken the long-term warrior within you. Every time you choose the difficult task, the delayed reward, the disciplined action, you sharpen your mind. You harden your focus. You strengthen your emotional command. It's not about pleasure. It's about power. It's not about mood. It's about mastery. That's the key. Let's get brutally practical now. Here are the steps. Follow them, and you take control of your dopamine. Ignore them, and dopamine will control you. 1. Break the reward loop. Notice your triggers. When do you reach for your phone? When do you chase escape? When do you look for quick pleasure? Call it out. Interrupt it. Replace it with discipline. Discipline over dopamine. Always. 2. Set non-negotiable work blocks. You must train your brain like a warrior trains his sword. Set fixed blocks of time where there is no phone, no notifications, no scrolling, just effort. You don't need permission to focus. You don't need validation to begin. You need discipline. That's the key. 3. Stop using entertainment as escape. Entertainment is fine. Escapism is not. If you're running from your life, your goals, or your discomfort, you're feeding weakness. Face your tasks. Face your challenges. Face the discomfort. That's where strength is built. 4. Reward yourself only after discipline. Earn your dopamine. Don't drown in it. Make pleasure the effect, not the cause. Effort first, reward after. This rewires your mind to associate satisfaction with accomplishment, not avoidance. 5. Build a warrior environment. Your environment shapes your habits. Your habits shape your discipline. Clean your space. Organize your tools. Remove junk triggers. Limit noise. Surround yourself with focus, not chaos. This is how warriors think. This is how warriors win. Now listen closely. Dopamine is unreliable. Discipline is unbreakable. Dopamine asks, what feels good right now? Discipline asks, what builds me long term? And you have a choice. You can follow the world, scrolling, switching, seeking, chasing cheap rewards that leave you empty. Or you can choose the warrior path. Consistency, focus, delayed gratification, mastery over mood. Dopamine fades. Discipline remains. Write it on your wall. Say it every morning. Repeat it when your mind starts craving the easy path, because that craving is the enemy. That craving is the weakness. That craving is the voice that ruins potential. Your job? Silence it. Starve it. Replace it with rhythm, structure, and unshakable resolve. Imagine the version of you who's controlled by nothing. Not by cravings, not by impulses, not by pleasure, not by the need for constant stimulation. Imagine the version of you who decides what matters and then executes relentlessly. That's emotional control. That's mental strength. That's the warrior state. And you reach it through one path. Discipline over dopamine. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You need consistency. You need structure. You need discipline. That's the key. You want a better life? Stop chasing better feelings. Start building better habits. Stop craving dopamine. Start training discipline. Stop waiting for motivation. Start moving with intention. You have a choice, and the choice is simple. Pleasure that weakens you, or discipline that strengthens you. One gives you temporary relief. The other gives you permanent power. Dopamine fades. Discipline remains.
Every warrior faces two battles, the one in front of them and the one inside them. Most people spend their lives losing the internal war, not because they don't feel enough, but because they feel too much and they don't know what to do with it. But a warrior thinks differently. A warrior doesn't run from emotion. A warrior doesn't numb emotion. A warrior transforms emotion. That is emotional alchemy. Transform fear into focus. Transform pain into presence. Transform anger into fuel. Don't numb your emotions. Forge them into strength. Let's break down the truth. Emotion is energy. Uncontrolled energy destroys. Directed energy builds. Fear can paralyze you, or it can sharpen you. Pain can break you, or it can ground you. Anger can blind you, or it can push you. You have a choice. It's not about avoiding emotion. It's about disciplining emotion. It's about channeling emotion into purpose. It's not about fear. It's about focus. It's not about pain. It's about presence. It's not about anger. It's about discipline. That's the key. Let's start with fear. Fear is not your enemy. Fear is information. Fear is a signal. Fear is energy that demands direction. The warrior mindset uses fear like a compass. Fear tells you where the growth is. Fear points to the doorway you're supposed to walk through. A soldier standing before battle doesn't expect to feel calm. He expects to feel fear. But he doesn't bow to it. He shapes it. He takes the trembling energy in his chest and transforms it into laser focus. Fear becomes focus, but only when you command it. Don't numb your emotions. Forge them into strength. Next, let's talk about pain. Everyone feels pain. Only warriors turn pain into presence. Pain pulls you into the moment. It forces awareness. It strips away distraction, fantasy, and illusion. Pain puts you face to face with reality. And reality is where discipline is built. When life hits you, you can run, or you can stand still and breathe. You can drown in emotion, or you can anchor yourself in the present moment. Pain becomes presence. Presence becomes clarity. Clarity becomes power. That's the transformation. That's emotional alchemy. You have a choice. Now let's talk about anger. Anger is fire. Fire can destroy a village or forge a blade. Anger becomes a problem when it owns you, when it blinds you, when it pushes you to react instead of command. But anger is also fuel. It is intensity. It is drive. It is the energy that says, I refuse to stay where I am. A warrior doesn't lash out. A warrior channels. A warrior turns anger into forward motion, not foolish reaction. Anger becomes fuel. Fuel becomes momentum. Momentum becomes mastery. That's the key. Don't numb your emotions. Forge them into strength. Emotional alchemy is not magic. It's training. It's discipline. It's the repetition of one mindset. I don't run from emotion. I redirect emotion. Here's how you practice it, step by step. 1. Name the emotion. Clarity is the first weapon. If you can't name it, you can't command it. Say it out loud. I feel fear. I feel tension. I feel anger. I feel frustration. Naming emotion reduces its power. It forces awareness. It turns chaos into something you can work with. 2. Identify the energy inside the emotion. Every emotion carries energy. Fear has sharp energy. Pain has grounding energy. Anger has explosive energy. Don't judge it. Use it. This is discipline. This is control. 3. Redirect the energy into action. Emotion without direction becomes self-destruction. Emotion with purpose becomes strength. Turn fear into deep focus on the next step. Turn pain into presence with your breath and your body. Turn anger into clean, controlled, decisive movement. This is emotional alchemy in motion. This is how warriors build power. You have a choice. Here's the truth. Most people drown because they fight emotion with emotion. They panic about their fear. They get angry about their anger. They feel ashamed about their pain. But warriors don't do this. Warriors observe. Warriors redirect. Warriors transform. Don't numb your emotions. Forge them into strength. Let me give you a real example. When elite fighters step into the ring, they don't feel calm. They feel fear, excitement, aggression, pressure, all at once. But they don't run from it. They don't suppress it. They channel it into timing, precision, presence, and execution. That's emotional alchemy. Not empty emotion, directed emotion. And you can train this every single day. You must understand, your emotions are not your weakness. Your lack of discipline with emotions is your weakness. But weakness can be trained. Weakness can be molded. Weakness can be reforged. It's not about emotion. It's about execution. It's not about chaos. It's about control. It's not about suppression. It's about transformation. That's the key. And you have a choice. Imagine yourself becoming the kind of person who feels everything and still commands everything. Not cold, not numb, not detached from life, but in control of the fire inside you. That's emotional alchemy. That's the beginning of true inner power. That's how warriors rise. Don't numb your emotions. Forge them into strength.
The loud man is rarely in control. The calm man wins wars before they even begin, because stillness gives clarity, and clarity wins decisions. You know that, but you forget it every time you rush, every time you react, every time you speak before thinking. So today, we fix that. Today you learn why silence is not weakness. Silence is not passiveness. Silence is not retreat. Silence is strategy. Silence is discipline. Silence is a weapon sharpened by warriors who know the cost of noise. You've been taught to fill every moment with words, to answer instantly, to explain yourself, to defend your feelings, to justify your emotions. That conditioning made you predictable. Predictability is a liability, and a warrior cannot afford liabilities. Understand this clearly. Silence sharpens the mind. Noise weakens it. Say it again. Silence sharpens the mind. Noise weakens it. This is your refrain, your anchor, your reset button. When you speak too quickly, you give away your power. When you speak too much, you reveal your strategy. When you react instantly, you operate from emotion instead of clarity. And emotion-driven decisions are the most expensive decisions a person can make. You have a choice. That's the key. A warrior doesn't respond just because someone wants a response. A warrior doesn't speak just because the room is loud. A warrior doesn't react just because he feels something rising inside him. He waits. He watches. He judges the terrain. He listens to the truth beneath the noise. Most people fear silence. You know why? Because silence forces you to confront yourself. Silence forces you to hear your own thoughts. Silence eliminates the distraction that they use to hide from their own lack of discipline. But you are not most people. You are training for mastery, and mastery requires stillness. Think of all the times you regretted something you said. Think of the times you spoke too fast. Think of the times you revealed too much. Painful, isn't it? But good. You need that memory, because those mistakes came from noise, external or internal. And you're not going to make decisions from noise anymore. Let's break it down simply. 1. Silence gives you time. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to observe what others miss. When you're silent, you widen the gap between stimulus and response. In that gap, you regain power. 2. Silence makes others reveal themselves. People hate silence. They rush to fill it, and in rushing, they leak information, insecurity, weakness, intention. Silence exposes truth in ways force never can. 3. Silence protects your emotional energy. Every unnecessary conversation drains you. Every argument you enter steals focus. Every reaction you give fuels someone else's control over you. You don't need their permission to stay silent. You don't need their validation to stay calm. You only need discipline. 4. Silence strengthens your internal command. The quieter your outer world becomes, the louder your inner intuition becomes. That's not magic. That's clarity. And clarity is power. Remember, silence sharpens the mind. Noise weakens it. Now let's talk about how to practice this, because this audiobook isn't about inspiration. It's about transformation. Behavioral instructions. What a warrior actually does. Instruction 1. Delay your response. Not because you're unsure, not because you're scared, but because discipline requires it. Count 3 seconds before replying in moments of tension. 3 seconds is enough to stop a reaction from becoming a regret. Instruction 2. Observe before you declare. Warriors don't guess. They gather data. They watch body language, tone, intention. They listen to what is said and what is not said. Silence turns you into a strategist, not a participant. Instruction 3. Do not explain more than necessary. Excessive explanation is insecurity disguised as communication. A warrior speaks only what is essential. No justification, no emotional overflow, no oversharing. Simple, direct, final. Instruction 4. Protect your mental bandwidth. Useless conversations are mental clutter. Drama is noise. Gossip is noise. Trying to impress people is noise. You have limited focus, so stop wasting it on trivia. Instruction 5. Create daily silence. 10 minutes. Just you, no phone, no music, no scrolling. Sit with your thoughts. Let your mind settle. This is where emotional control is built. This is where clarity is born. The psychology of silence. Let's go deeper. Why does silence give you power? Because silence puts you in the observer state, and the observer state is the opposite of the emotional state. When you observe, you rise above the moment. You see patterns. You understand motives. You stop reacting to the small and start preparing for the big. That's the key. People who live in noise drown in details. People who live in silence rise to strategy. A warrior needs strategy more than comfort, more than validation, more than expression. Strategy wins. Noise loses. Look at any powerful leader, commander, negotiator, or thinker. They all share the same trait. They speak less than the average person. Why? Because every word matters. Every sentence carries intent. Every statement has weight. Power is not loud. Power is controlled. You have a choice. You can remain someone who reacts, or you can become someone who commands. And command begins with silence. When silence is power, and when silence is a trap. Silence is not ignoring. Silence is not shutting down. Silence is not emotional avoidance. Silence becomes power when it's intentional. Silence becomes weakness when it's fear. You must know the difference. A warrior's silence is grounded in awareness, not avoidance. It comes from clarity, not insecurity. It comes from discipline, not insecurity. If you use silence to escape responsibility, that's not strength. That's running. And running never works. Use silence to control yourself, not to hide from life. Use silence to sharpen your mind, not to shut down your emotions. The transformation you're after. When you master silence, you master reaction. When you master reaction, you master decision. When you master decision, you master destiny. This entire audiobook is about control, self-control, emotional control, strategic control. And silence is one of the purest forms of control you will ever develop. Say it again. Silence sharpens the mind. Noise weakens it. You don't need their permission to be calm. You don't need applause to be calculated. You don't need agreement to be disciplined. You only need the courage to sit in stillness and let the world reveal itself to you. A warrior who can stay silent under pressure is a warrior who cannot be manipulated. He cannot be rushed. He cannot be baited. He cannot be controlled. That's real power, and it's yours if you choose it. You mastered your silence. You reclaimed your clarity. Now, let's talk about the hidden energy that fuels every action, every emotion,
and every decision.
Emotional control is not optional. It is not a luxury. It is not nice to have. It is the foundation of power, reputation, and influence. Every outburst drains credibility. Every reaction fractures trust. Every moment of emotional volatility destroys momentum. And here's the truth you already know but rarely admit. You can't lead if you can't hold your fire. Say it again. You can't lead if you can't hold your fire. People follow strength. People follow stability. People follow someone who stays centered when everything else falls apart. You have a choice. That's the key. Every time pressure hits, you choose who you're becoming. A warrior with discipline or a reactor with excuses. Let me tell you a real story. A story most leaders never forget because some of them lived it. The CEO who lost his team before he lost his company. He built his company from nothing. He was talented, smart, visionary. But he had one flaw, one weakness he never confronted. He couldn't control his temper. When things were good, he was inspiring. When numbers were up, he was charismatic. When the market favored him, he was a hero. But the moment the business hit a crisis, the moment the pressure rose, his real discipline was tested, and the truth came out. One morning, reports showed a major deal falling through. A deal the whole team depended on. A deal that required calm thinking and strategic action. But instead of focusing, he exploded. He yelled. He blamed. He attacked the very people trying to help him. And in that moment, not because of the crisis, but because of his reaction to the crisis, he lost something far more valuable than the deal. He lost the faith of his team. They didn't quit that day. They didn't argue. They didn't push back. They simply disconnected from him silently. And once a leader loses trust, once a leader shows emotional instability, the team stops believing. Momentum died. Energy died. Initiative died. Because you can't rally behind someone who can't rally himself. And you can't lead if you can't hold your fire. This is the cost. This is what losing your cool really looks like. It's not about the outburst. It's about the consequences that follow. You don't need their permission to stay calm. You don't need the world to cooperate before you regain control. You only need discipline. The real damage of emotional volatility. Let's break it down. Not emotionally, not philosophically, but practically. 1. You lose respect. People stop seeing strength. They start seeing fragility. They start seeing someone controlled by impulse instead of intention. 2. You lose clarity. Anger narrows your vision. Fear clouds your judgment. Reactiveness blurs your strategy. The mind collapses under noise. 3. You lose alignment. Teams follow leaders who stay steady. Families trust people who stay grounded. Partners rely on those who can stay composed. The moment you explode, alignment dissolves. 4. You lose long-term opportunity. People remember how you handle pressure. They remember how you acted when things got tight. Your reputation forms in seconds, but lasts for years. And the biggest loss of all? You lose yourself. Because every reaction reinforces the same identity. Someone who can't handle it, someone who cracks under pressure, someone who is ruled by emotion. You have a choice. That's the key. Identity is built through repetition, through the decisions you make under pressure, through the moments you either lose your fire or hold it. Say it again. You can't lead if you can't hold your fire. When you hold it, people trust you. When you hold it, people follow you. When you hold it, you become someone unshakable. That's the warrior you're building. You faced the cost of losing your cool. Now it's time to face something deeper. The forces inside you that drain or fuel your power. You think resilience is forged in chaos. You think strength comes from dramatic moments. You think warriors are made in the heat of battle. Wrong. Warriors are built when nothing is happening. Strength is built in the quiet hours. Resilience is built in boredom. Not during the storm, but during the slow, silent, thankless repetitions most people avoid. Most people want passion. They want excitement. They want motivation. But warriors don't wait for passion. They build patience. They build consistency. They build discipline. Say it clearly. Repetition is resistance training for the mind. Again, repetition is resistance training for the mind. This is where emotional control grows, not in a crisis, not in a dramatic turning point, but in the dull moments where you want to quit and choose not to. You have a choice. That's the key. Every boring moment is a test that most people fail, not because it's hard, but because it's not exciting. The truth about resilience. Resilience doesn't appear magically. It doesn't show up when you suddenly need it. It's not a switch you flip. It's a muscle you build. And like any muscle, it grows through resistance, through slow reps, through steady effort, through showing up when you don't feel like it. You don't need their permission. You don't need applause. You don't need instant results. What you need is discipline. What you need is routine. What you need is boredom. Because boredom is where the average man quits and the warrior begins. People misunderstand emotional mastery. They think it comes from intense moments of determination. But emotional control is not born in passion. It is born in patience. Patience is the environment where the mind becomes unshakable. Say it again. Repetition is resistance training for the mind. The unsung training of a warrior. Look at any elite warrior tradition. The samurai, the Spartans, the monks, the modern special forces. Their power wasn't built in combat. It was built in the hours before combat. Hundreds of hours sharpening a blade. Thousands of hours practicing a strike. Millions of breaths taken to control the mind. Boredom created mastery. Repetition created confidence. Discipline created unbreakable spirit. Let me give you a picture. A samurai doesn't sharpen his blade only when a battle is near. He sharpens it daily, whether or not he expects war, whether or not anyone sees, whether or not he feels inspired. Because the blade is not just a tool, it is his identity. And identity is built through repetition. Your mind is your blade. Your emotional control is your weapon. Your resilience is your armor. And you sharpen all of it in boredom. Why most people never become resilient? It's simple, not dramatic, not philosophical. Most people quit because boredom feels like failure. They think, if I'm not excited, I'm not growing. They think, if it's not thrilling, it's not meaningful. They think, if I'm not feeling motivated, I'm losing. That's the lie. That's the trap. That's the weakness. Real growth happens when you keep going long after motivation dies. Real resilience appears when excitement disappears. Real mental strength is built when your emotions say stop and your discipline says continue. Because it's not about feelings, it's about discipline. It's not about passion, it's about patience. It's not about excitement, it's about endurance. You have a choice. That's the key. Every boring rep makes you stronger. Every quiet morning makes you tougher. Every thankless task builds armor around your mind. Repetition is resistance training for the mind. Behavioral instructions. How to build resilience through boredom. Here's what you must start doing. Not for a day, not for a week, but until it becomes who you are. Instruction 1. Keep the routine when it gets boring. The moment something feels dull, keep going. That's the rep that changes you. That's the moment that builds discipline. That's the moment that separates warriors from wanderers. Instruction 2. Practice emotional stillness daily. Set aside time where you do nothing except breathe and observe. No distractions, no stimulation, no escape. This is how you train patience. This is how you regulate your emotions. This is how you build inner stillness on command. Instruction 3. Do low excitement work intentionally. Clean your environment. Organize your space. Complete small tasks with precision. Work like a craftsman, not a consumer. Boredom becomes sacred when you approach it with purpose. Instruction 4. Track consistency, not excitement. Stop measuring how you feel. Measure what you actually did. Feelings fluctuate. Discipline accumulates. This trains your brain to value action over emotion. Instruction 5. Limit stimulation. Stop flooding your brain with dopamine. Stop training your mind to crave constant novelty. Embrace silence. Embrace routine. Embrace stillness. This builds a mind that doesn't need excitement to function. Because again, repetition is resistance training for the mind. The transformation only boredom can give you. Why does boredom matter so much? Because boredom forces you to confront yourself. Because boredom strips away the noise. Because boredom reveals your character. When you stay consistent through boredom, you become someone different, someone patient, someone steady, someone disciplined. That is where resilience takes root. Not in drama, not in chaos, not in motivation, in repetition, in routine, in boredom. You have a choice. You always do. Choose the boring reps. Choose the patience. Choose the discipline. Choose the identity you're building, not the emotion you're feeling. Because it's not about excitement, it's about discipline. It's not about motivation, it's about consistency. It's not about stimulation, it's about strength. Say it again. Repetition is resistance training for the mind. Practice it long enough, and you become unshakable. Practice it long enough, and you develop emotional control that cannot be stolen. Practice it long enough, and you step into the warrior you were meant to be. You learned how resilience is built in boredom. Now it's time to understand something deeper, the hidden force that either protects your emotional strength or destroys it completely.
You want strength. You want clarity. You want control. But let me tell you the truth that most people never understand. You will never command your life until you command your mind. Everything begins there. Everything falls apart there. Everything is rebuilt there. This chapter is not about motivation. This is not about feeling good. This is about domination, the highest form of emotional mastery. The kind where you speak and your mind obeys. The kind where your thoughts listen to you, not the other way around. Remember the phrase, let it echo. Let it sink deeper with every sentence. Command your mind. Control your world. That's the key. Most people live like passengers. They sit in the back seat of their own mind, hoping the ride goes smoothly. They hope their thoughts behave. They hope their emotions don't explode. They hope they feel like doing what they said they would do. Hope is not a strategy. Hope is not discipline. And you're not here to live like the average person. You're here to take the wheel. You're here to lead yourself with authority. You're here to build the inner commander, the voice inside you that doesn't negotiate, doesn't beg, doesn't fold. Let's get one thing straight. Emotional mastery is not about being emotionless. It's about choosing your response every time. You hear me? Every single time. People think strength is loud. They think it's aggressive. They think it's a chest-beating alpha performance. But real strength is quiet, controlled,
deliberate. Real strength sounds like this. I don't react, I decide. I don't panic, I observe. I don't break, I adjust. You have a choice. In every moment, you have a choice. That's the key. Most people abandon that choice. They hand it over to fear. They hand it over to insecurity. They hand it over to anxiety, distraction, impulses, moods, but not you. Not anymore. Because now you understand the truth. Your mind is not the enemy. Your lack of command is. Let's talk about what being the inner commander looks like in the real world. 1. You give orders, not excuses. A commander doesn't ask, "Do I feel like waking up?" He says, "Wake up," and the body follows. A commander doesn't ask, "Am I motivated?" He says, "Move," and the legs start walking. A commander doesn't ask, "Will they approve?" He says, "Execute," and the world adjusts. You don't need their permission. You don't need their encouragement. You don't need their validation. The inner commander doesn't wait for conditions to be perfect. He creates the conditions. Command your mind. Control your world. 2. You decide the emotional temperature. Most people spend their lives reacting. You set the temperature. You decide when to be calm. You decide when to be sharp. You decide when to rise or when to rest. That is what emotional mastery looks like. Not numbing yourself, not suppressing your feelings, but directing them. Anger becomes fuel. Fear becomes information. Sadness becomes reflection. Excitement becomes momentum. It's not about perfection. It's about discipline. It's not about stopping emotions. It's about steering them. That's the key. 3. You interrupt weak thoughts on sight. Weakness starts as a whisper. I can't. I'm tired. It's too much. I'll start tomorrow. You want to know how commanders deal with whispers? They cut them off instantly. You interrupt the thought. You replace it with a command. I can't becomes do it anyway. I'm tired becomes one more round. It's too much becomes handle it. I'll start tomorrow becomes start now. You have a choice. Every time you have a choice. Command your mind. Control your world. 4. You train your inner voice like a soldier. You don't build a commander by accident. You build him by training. Daily, consistent training. Here's the formula. Short commands. Not paragraphs, not emotional speeches, just directives. Stand up. Go. Focus. Stop. Hold. Write. Finish. Immediate execution. No delay, no excuses. The gap between the command and the action must shrink until it disappears. Zero negotiation. Negotiation is where discipline dies. The moment you negotiate, you lose authority over yourself. Your self-respect grows every time you follow your own command. Your confidence grows every time you override your excuses. Your power grows every time you refuse to break. That's how commanders are made, not through comfort, through consistency. 5. You no longer let emotion hijack the mission. Here is the trap that destroys most people. They feel something, and then they become it. They feel fear, and they shrink. They feel stress, and they panic. They feel doubt, and they freeze. But remember this, your feelings are signals, not orders. This is where you win. You hear the signal, but you don't follow blindly. You decide. You choose. Say it again. You have a choice. And the moment you choose your response, you're no longer reacting. You're commanding. 6. You lead yourself the way a warrior leads an army. A warrior doesn't wait for inspiration. He doesn't wait for a mood. He doesn't wait for comfort. He moves because the mission demands it. He acts because the standard requires it. He disciplines himself because the battlefield punishes hesitation. Your battlefield is internal. Your enemy is internal. Your greatest victory is internal. Command your mind. Control your world. Here's your assignment. Train the commander today. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when life gets easier. Today. Pick one action you've been avoiding. One. Small or large, it doesn't matter. Give yourself a command, a single, clear directive. Then execute with zero negotiation. You are not training the action. You're training the identity of someone who leads from the inside. You are building the commander. The closing truth. Listen carefully. When you master the inner commander, external chaos loses its power. Drama loses its influence. Fear loses its grip. Other people's opinions lose their weight. Why? Because they cannot control a mind that already controls itself. This is your turning point. This is where you stop being a passenger. This is where you step into the captain's seat. This is where you start living with authority, power, and emotional mastery.
You've heard enough. Now it's time to act. Stop chasing motivation. Stop worshiping comfort. Stop letting moods dictate your mission. Emotional control is the dividing line between amateurs and masters, between talkers and doers, between the restless and the relentless. You now have the blueprint. Focus over feelings, discipline over impulse, clarity over chaos. So when life hits you hard, when emotions scream and distractions pull, remember, you don't follow feelings, you follow focus. The warrior within you already knows what to do.